My question is for Dr. Kalant, and thank you so much for your brief that I have in front of me, and I appreciate very much the way you've set out what you think are the problems and suggested solutions. I do have a question, though, about the evidence that you have cited from Colorado. And one of our challenges with this bill is that there is evidence coming at us from different sides that doesn't seem to agree with each other. So I will cite to you the evidence from Colorado that we have from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health in the United States. And they have found that, and in fact, the executive director of the Department of Revenue said that in the 3 years since they legalized marijuana, 70% of the market is now legalized, and 30% of the market is in the gray zone because of home sales. And there are conflicting numbers, conflicting with the numbers that you have given us on use going up or down. I just wonder if we could perhaps get the citations from your evidence so that we can look at it and compare it with what we have. So that's a request. That's not a question as much. My question, though, is around, I'm trying to pick up from what Senator Seidman had asked around comparing alcohol and cannabis. I wonder, though, if it's fairer to compare tobacco with cannabis, because alcohol regulations are looser than those governing tobacco. And the government has quite successfully reduced tobacco consumption rates from 50% in 1965 to 15% in 2013. Do you think that with the appropriate controls in place, Canadians could see a decline in cannabis consumption among young people, much like what's been done with tobacco?
I would say, first of all, that I would differ with your statement that the government was successful in lowering tobacco use. It was actually the public itself, and particularly youth, who led the pressure drive to reduce the use of tobacco. I remember quite well, I am old enough to have a memory that goes back a long way. I remember the statements that many youngsters made to their parents: do you want to leave us as orphans? They pressured their parents to stop smoking. And that is an important thing to remember in relation to cannabis. If the children themselves were able to do that, why do they not do that with cannabis? That's what we have to learn, how to recruit young people to persuade other young people, and through them to put pressure on the public at large. The question of differences of opinion of the information from Colorado, for example, I agree with you. There have been conflicting reports. But, excuse me, one has to look at what the reports were and what they were based on. For example, for the first 2 years after legalization, a report that was based on the National Survey of Drug Use all across the country used a balanced, a structured population sample that was representative of the population in each state. That survey showed an increase in use by young people. There was, at the same time, a survey carried out by the high schools of the state, by certain high schools, which was not a representative sample, which was based on only 10 or 12 schools and did not include any in the areas of the state that were known to have the heaviest use of cannabis. They found no increase, or a very small increase. Surprisingly, in the 3rd and 4th years after use, the national survey showed the beginning of a downturn in use by youth, while the high school one now started to show an increase. We have to have a very careful look and very thorough, well-organized surveys to get at the facts in these cases. But in terms of the national surveys, which are the best, there is no doubt that total use altogether, including, surprisingly, use by those over 65 years of age, has definitely gone up.
Second question.